Today's video is part 1 of 2 of an overview of the state taxes that are owed upon a person's death. My name is Gregory Singleton. I'm an estate planning and probate attorney with Signature Law. Signature Law is an estate planning and probate law firm that serves the Twin Cities and Greater Minnesota alike. Just as a reminder, if you like today's video, please do hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help support the channel. Also, a couple caveats before we get going. First of all, we're going to be talking Minnesota law here primarily, though we'll touch on some other states. But if you live in another jurisdiction and are watching any of these videos, make sure to talk to a practitioner that is licensed in your jurisdiction before you go to plan your estate. Second of all, these videos are for educational purposes only. I'm not giving legal advice. So death and taxes, the two things that we just can't escape. What taxes are owed because of a person's death on the state level? We're not talking federal taxes here, we're talking state taxes here. There are essentially 3 types of taxes that are due, that could be due to the state. Income tax, inheritance tax, and the estate tax. In part 1 in this video, we're going to hit on the income tax and the inheritance tax, and in the next video, we're going to talk about the estate tax. So let's jump right into it and start talking about the income tax. Now, we're all relatively familiar about what an income tax is. It is a tax levied on a person's earning that are owed by the person who did the actual earning. Now, there are no income taxes that are actually earned because of someone dies. That just doesn't happen. For example, we've got life insurance. There's a death benefit that is paid when someone dies, but we don't levy an income tax on it. But that doesn't mean we don't have to worry about income taxes at all. There are 3 times that we have to focus on income taxes. The first is by the person, and this is all done by the personal representative, by the way. The personal representative will look for delinquent taxes. We're in 2023 right now. Let's say the person didn't pay their taxes for tax year 2021. That'll have to be satisfied. The state government and federal government have priority over most other distributions. So you're going to have to look at back taxes to find out if there's anything owed. The second income tax we're going to focus on is the prior year. If someone dies before having paid their taxes for the previous year, let's say they died February 20th of this year and they hadn't paid their taxes yet. They were just putting that off, or maybe they just didn't want to deal with it. The taxes that are due and owed on April 15th will need to be satisfied by the personal representative. The third type of income tax that we're going to look at, and this is what trips up a lot of personal representatives, is the income for the current year. We are in August right now, a hot, sweltering August in Minnesota. Let's say somebody dies. Bob dies, trampled by elephants. Terrible, but he was heroic and he saved a whole bunch of school children from a like death. So anyway, Bob dies, and he obviously hasn't paid his taxes for the tax year 2023. Those aren't owed until April 15th or thereabouts of 2024. So the personal representative is going to have to pay the taxes for January 1st through present day through the date of death of Bob's income taxes. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it goes. Now that we've talked about income tax, let's look at the first of the taxes that are due because of a person's death, or may be due. This is going to be the inheritance tax. Now, an inheritance tax is not a tax levied on the person doing earnings. It's similar. It's a tax levied on assets that are inherited by a person. So let's say Bob dies, kill off Bob again, sorry Bob, and his estate is worth $4 million. Congratulations, Bob, you're doing better than most people. Bob makes a gift to Julie of $100,000. Now, we're not talking an estate tax on the entire $4 million that Bob has. What the inheritance tax is on the $100,000 that was given to Julie. It's similar to an income tax, but it's different tax rates than the income tax rates or capital gains tax rates. There are 6 states that have an inheritance tax, and that's going to include Iowa, Nebraska, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Maryland. Now, each of these states calculates it slightly differently. Some states have exemptions, some do not. But let's take, for example, Iowa. So Iowa has a graduated inheritance tax, meaning for the first $12,500 of a gift, it's going to be subject to a 2% tax. After that, up to $25,000 will be subject to a 2.4% tax, et cetera, up until gifts that are $150,000 or more are subject to a 4% tax. Now, I do want to note that Iowa is working on phasing out their inheritance tax, and they hope to do so by the year 2025. Do note that each state calculates it slightly differently. They have a different graduated tax rate, if they have graduated tax rate at all. Nebraska, for example, exempts gifts up to $40,000 from any inheritance tax. Some states exempt any gifts from an estate that is below a certain threshold, so that if the estate is below a certain threshold, then there's going to be no inheritance tax on gifts coming out of that state. So just be aware, talk to a practitioner in your state when you're going to figure out your tax to find out if there's any tax due. In many ways, an inheritance tax feels like an income tax. An individual receives money and they're taxed on the amount that they receive. The difference is inheritance tax rates are much, much, much lower than income tax rates. It's just the larger the gift, the larger the tax. Though if we look at the Iowa example, we're only looking at a fraction of a percent difference as the gift gets larger. So that is my take on part one of our overview of state taxes that may be owed upon someone's death. I hope you liked today's video. If you did like today's video, please feel free to hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help support the channel. We do new videos every other Wednesday. We're in the middle of smattering in redos of some of our essential series, but we've got some celebrity estates coming up. We've got some interesting cases that have happened. We've got some concepts we're going to look at. We're going to have some fun. I think it's fun. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below or just send me an email. Happy to get back to you. Otherwise, until next time, this is Gregory Singleton with Signature Law.